Mark Ogden's been writing about the trials and tribulations of Harry Maguire over recent months. Part of the article says Harry needs pace around him, but he hasn't had that. A source close to Maguire told ESPN, if you put Man City's Ruben Dias in the United defence and Harry in the City back four, Dias would struggle and Harry would thrive. Harry hasn't had a good 12 months, but he hasn't been helped by those around him. Let's welcome in, shall we, Mark Ogden first. Mark, can you just confirm the source close to Harry Maguire isn't Harry Maguire?
It's not Harry Maguire, no, despite what social media seem to think today. Harry Maguire hasn't phoned me up, so yeah, let's put that one straight right away.
Has he got a point, Mark, your source?
Well, I think so. I mean, he does stress in there that Harry has had a great time, hasn't had a great time the last 12 months, and he's had a terrible start to the season. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that Harry Maguire should be back in the United team or in the England team, but I do think that the players around Harry Maguire, certainly last season, didn't help him at all. You know, I think the goalkeeper behind him was an issue. I think the defensive partners he had were all different and not particularly reliable, and the fullbacks were particularly great. And you can even go further forward and say that he was getting no protection on the defence, was getting no protection from the midfielders. So it wasn't easy to be a defender at Man United last season. And I suppose being the captain, being the world's most expensive defender, you're a lightning rod for criticism. So, you know, put Ruben Dias in that team, put Harry Maguire in the City team, I think you'd see a difference. I'm not suggesting that Harry Maguire would be a world beater at Man City, but I do think that the players around him contributed to his poor form last season and the start of this.
Don, what are you shaking your head at?
I'm just trying to imagine that Ruben Dias has been playing with speed merchants while he's been at Man City. I mean, he's been playing with Laporte, not quick. John Stones, not quick. Sometimes Fernandinho, not quick at all. I mean, Ruben Dias is a far better defender than Harry Maguire. I mean, you know, yes, he needs pace around him. That's evident. That's, you know, if Harry Maguire is a footballing centre-back, then obviously he needs people on the cover. But to suggest that if you put Ruben Dias in Man United's defence, they'd be better, I don't see that one.
I think the point is, guys, I think that, you know, he's had Kyle Walker and Cancelo as well. They've got a lot of pace at City, and I think, you know, I'm not saying Ruben Dias to make United better, but I think it'd probably make him worse if he played for Man United. Certainly last season, this season's defence looks slightly better.
I don't think I don't think it's rocket science to suggest, and you know, I've talked about this before. Harry Maguire would be, excuse me, a completely different player if he'd gone to Man City, as was touted at the time, when both clubs were vying for his services. He had a coach who was tactically way more astute than anything that he'd kind of worked with. He had better players around him, and so he'd probably have made less mistakes. That being said, you know, clearly it's easier to play better in the City team than it is the Man United. You've only got to look at the surrounding, the supporting cast. But it still doesn't take away from some of the silly, bad defensive decisions that he's made. So, yeah, I mean, he's been smarter from the criticism. He's still getting criticism whenever he makes an appearance. But as Don said, I think Ruben Dias is just much more of a solid defender. I mean, Harry Maguire is a good ball-playing centre-back who's lost his confidence. And that's the bottom line, and hence lost his position in the Man United team.
What happens? What is the future of Harry Maguire, Mark?
I mean, it does look pretty grim, doesn't it? Look at United. I think Ten Hag is certainly settled on Lisandro Martinez as one half of his defence, and Varane is playing well. I do think that Varane at some point might let him down in terms of fitness. I think last season we saw that he's not able to play, he's not robust enough to play every game of the season. So the issue comes then, if Varane has to be taken out of the team for a period of time, what happens then? Because I don't think Lindelof is great, and then beyond that, you've not really got many options. So Maguire might get back in, but I just think he's 29 now, his confidence is gone, and I think I don't think people trust him. I don't think the fans trust him anymore. I think that gets into his kind of psyche a little bit. I think he feels that now. So it's going to be tough for him, and it's going to be tough for him to rebuild his career, because, like I say, he's 29. He's not a first choice at United. His wages will mean he won't be able to move from United anytime soon, and his England place is now under threat because, you know, he's not playing at Man United. So it really is a bad time for Harry Maguire. I don't see a route back unless Varane gets injured.
Just thinking about it, who was his centre half partner at Leicester? Wasn't Wes Morgan in the end? Can't remember anyway.
Johnny Evans.
Johnny Evans, right. Possibly Johnny Evans. Now, is anyone here suggesting, with all the experience in the world, that Johnny Evans is the quickest player around? I don't think so. So at the end of the day, they forged the partnership, they forged a decent back four, not long after the successful winning title team. So yeah, I mean, Johnny Evans wasn't exactly Usain Bolt, was he?
Don, it must just be a miserable existence, isn't it? You know, you were captain of Manchester United. That's taken away from you. As like Mark said, he's very much the lightning rod for all the criticism for United over the last couple of years. You've got to live in the city. Oh, God, I'd hate it.
Yeah, it's a horrible place to be, Dan, when your form's gone. And as Mark said, when the fans don't trust you, it is a horrible place to be when your confidence is low. I mean, it must have been difficult for him because, you know, playing well for England's one thing, playing well for Man United's another in a short period. But I think when he was good at Leicester, it's because he suited what Leicester had at the time. They were a counter-attacking side. Everyone knows that Harry Maguire's got no pace whatsoever. So Leicester at times, when they won the league, were camped out on their own 18-yard box. You had midfield players that used to either serve the wide men or get it forward double quick for Jamie Vardy. And they were a proper counter-attacking side. Now, when you play for Man United, you play for Man City, Liverpool, etc., etc., you're expected then to be in your position a good 20 yards further up the pitch, closer to the halfway line. That's not where Maguire wants to be. That's where he'll struggle, because if you've got no pace, you can't recover. 1v1s, he's not particularly good at defensive skills. That's why I sort of laughed at the fact that you compare him with Ruben Diaz, because 1v1, Diaz is a better player. But there's only one man can fix it. He's got to look in the mirror, which I'm sure he will do. He'll analyse himself, which he has to do. And then you've got to find some confidence and form from somewhere. The difficulty is when you're not playing, that's hard, because you can't show everyone and potential buying clubs what you're good at. And when you're going through a bad time, there's only one thing that's going to fix it, and that's getting out in the training ground, trying to get some self-confidence. And when you get your chance, because he will get a chance, you know, Harry Maguire's not going to not start any minutes this season. There's going to be times where he's going to be in Europe or in domestic competition when he gets his chance. That's the time where he's got to play well and say to the manager, listen, I can come back. It's the only thing you can do. You can't just give up. You can't just quit.
It is no fun, though, I can tell you. I had it at, obviously Manchester United is different, but I had it in the Premier League at Derby. A couple of years after signing, when Jim Smith was sacked, and Jim had made me club captain.
Right.
Obviously, Jim being sacked meant the club, we were struggling as a team. Colin Todd comes in, takes over from his role as assistant. But we were floundering, and as club captain, I took the brunt. You know, getting booed by your home fans, and then, you know, we played away at Middlesbrough, got absolutely hammered. I went over to take a corner kick, got booed by the 500 fans that were travelling. Then you're going to play at home the next week. You're going to run out that tunnel first with the armband in. You don't know if they're cheering you or booing you. It sends you all over. Even if it's not that I was playing great, but even if it's not you who's making all these mistakes, you as this symbol of supposed leadership, particularly with a young Derby County team as it was, and a few muppets like Delap and Higginbottom and those lot, the fans are going to have to they have to find it to somewhere.
Yes, there has to be a focal point, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, they're unlikely to boo youngsters. Jim Smith had gone. They're now looking at something else. Well, it's an international player.
Right.
Not doing it. So it's very, very, I would imagine for him it's very similar. He's had a lot of stick. He was the club captain. He wasn't necessarily always bad, a lot of times, but not always. And he's bore, as you've mentioned, the bulk of the criticism has certainly gone his way.
I just want to get Shaka's view on another point that Mark made in his article. Sources have said that Maguire's frustrations with goalkeeper David De Gea's communication and reluctance to defend further away from his goal line were also a factor in the overall melee in defence last season. That issue has been improved by Argentina defender Martinez's arrival from Ajax and his ability to communicate with and instruct De Gea in Spanish. Shaka, De Gea is one of Manchester United's best players over recent years. Does he need instructions as to how to be a goalkeeper?
No, David De Gea doesn't need those instructions. And while on the surface of it, I think it's valid, that lack of kind of communication and a difference in style or a different in style that a centre-back is used to, I think can be detrimental to that centre-back performance. But we're talking about at his peak, one of the best goalkeepers in world football, a Spanish goalkeeper who is not new to English football, and a centre-back who's not just the captain of his club team, but also represents his national team. So he's not lacking in experience either. what is being put forward there, I think is valid with a goalkeeper new to English football, fresh out of Spain, and a young, inexperienced centre-back. And David De Gea and Harry Maguire are neither of those. So I think that is kind of, it's either desperate or showing a lack of Harry Maguire's real ability or experience or confidence in both of those.
He wanted to be at Chelsea in 1994 then, or 93, when Chelsea signed Dmitry Karin, the Russian #1.
Right.
Who couldn't speak a single word of English.
Okay.
Right? You go and deal with that. Players shouting at him to get out for crosses and everything, and no. And then you say to him, "Hey, Dimmy, good save," and he'd go, "Thank you."
There you are.
I mean, so he could, but that's proper. You know, that's a big gap in communication.
Yes.
There when you said, come on, David. I get it. There's different styles, but there just seems a lot of excuses here to me.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Martinez has made a difference in the sense that he's a better communicator than Maguire, and I think he's a tougher character than Maguire. So I think he's organising that defence in which way Maguire didn't last year. I think there were times you could see it on the pitch that Maguire and De Gea were kind of looking at each other with arms out, shrugging the shoulders. Martinez has made a difference communication-wise, playing-wise, and he has brought a sense of confidence back to, I think, De Gea as well. I take exception to Shaq's point about De Gea being one of the best in the world. He's not anymore. I think he has been part of United's problems in recent years. I think he's one area that Ten Hag will look to deal with sooner rather than later. He can't use the ball at his feet. But Martinez has made things better because he's not Maguire, because he can communicate better with De Gea. And I think he's more prepared to be vocal and vociferous. And we've seen Martinez's body language around that back four. He's just energised it with the way he acts. We've seen him with Dalot fist bumping and Varane. He just brought an energy and a belief there, which wasn't there with Harry Maguire, it has to be said.
Does any of this stem back, Augie, to the fact that the player's head as well might not have been in the place that it should be? If you go back to, and I'm talking with Man United, his performances with England in general have been very good. If you go back to the incident when he was in Greece on holiday, getting himself in a bit of trouble and making some bad decisions, is it not just a case as well that he'd made this big move to Man United and maybe he thought he was the real deal, he was a finished article, and he could pretty much get away with anything and just had to turn up and play on a Saturday?
I'm not sure that's the case, Craig. I think I looked at his stats, and after he signed from Leicester, he played 71 consecutive Premier League games, didn't miss a minute. He was an absolute model of consistency and fitness. He got injured at Villa just before the Euros and came back to it about a month later. Now, ever since the injury at Villa in May, I think last year, his injury record has been patchy. I think it's affected his form. So I think that injury, that ankle ligament injury suffered at Villa in May 21, has hung over him more than people realise, because prior to that, he was one of United's more consistent players. All the mistakes we're seeing now and last season weren't happening when he was on that run of, I think Gary Palace matched Gary Palace's run of playing every single minute of every single game. So he was certainly playing well enough. So I think that injury has certainly had an effect, because he's not been the same player since, certainly for United.
Mark, why do you feel the need almost to come to his defence?
I don't. I just thought it was a good issue this week in International Week. I just felt that, considering he's not playing, he got a World Cup coming. I think that, Gareth Southgate has picked him despite his lack of form, and I felt that was an issue that needed to be addressed, because you have to say he's not earned his place in the England squad. He's in the England squad because of what he's done in the past, what he did at the Euros. Well, that was getting on for 18 months ago now, but the World Cup is 2 months away. There's no more squads to pick. So the fact that he's in the England squad is interesting, because is he really going to start the first game of the World Cup against Iran? Can he be trusted? I'm not sure he can. So I'm not defending him from the sense that I think he should play. I just think it's interesting that the situation he's in now, Man United captain, world's most expensive centre-half, been picked for England when he's clearly not playing well enough. So does that mean he's going to be a key figure at the World Cup? I mean, Gareth Southgate has to answer that question himself. He does pick players that he feels that have served him well in the past. But I think you've got Tomori at Milan who's playing well. You've got Mark Gueye that he likes at Crystal Palace. You've got Connor Cody, you've got Everton doing well, John Stones. I don't know where Maguire fits in, but he's picked him. So it's a massive 2 months for Harry Maguire. I think that he will go to the World Cup. I think he'll make the squad, but I don't think he can play.
It'd be a massive 2 months for Southgate as well.
He'd be desperate for him to play, won't he? Because he wants Harry Maguire to start. He clearly likes him, clearly trusts him.
He's just not going to start unless there's an injury.
Right.
That means it's a huge decision for him, because if you're a manager, and I've seen it with the Scotland national team, playing players who weren't playing for the club and getting caught out. Now, if you do that at the World Cup, right, and England flounder, Southgate is, and say, you know, Maguire doesn't play particularly well, and it's very difficult. It's difficult enough playing international football without playing international football with little or no club football. It's nigh on impossible. You're going to make even more mistakes. You're not going to be as sharp. You're going to get caught out. I mean, we're talking about elite level here. And if Southgate plays him and it goes wrong, he's leaving himself open to huge amount of criticism. Yeah. Bearing in mind, Augie said there are options out there, not with his experience, but there are options. But I can tell you, it is unlikely if he plays that he's going to be anywhere near sharp enough to play international football. Not a chance.
And we'll say thank you very much. And where are you, Mark? Just tell us, why are you there?
I'm in Vienna because I'm watching Iran play this week. Iran have got a game on Friday, so England's World Cup opponents and the US World Cup opponents, so I'm on a scouting mission.
Scouting mission.
Spying mission. Spying.
Spying. You just watch on the telly.
I can see by that.
That's easy to do, isn't it? I can see by
that room he's in. It's a.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.